For the longest time, figuring out if a company was successful was, well, pretty simple. You just looked at its financial bottom line. But what if that was only one part of the story? What if we could grade businesses not just on profit, but on their real impact on people and the planet? That was the game-changing idea behind the triple bottom line, a concept that tried to totally redefine what success even means. So let's get into how it all started. So the guy behind this whole thing, John Elkington, he coined the phrase way back in 1994. And what I find so fascinating is what he said about it. He compared it to Paul McCartney waking up with the song Yesterday, just fully formed in his head. The idea felt so natural, so obvious that he was absolutely sure someone else had to have thought of it first. But nope, he was the first. And that right there is the big question we're tackling today. The triple bottom line, or TBL for short, was supposed to change everything. But could this amazing idea actually be put into practice? Or was it always going to be more of a philosophical North Star than a practical report card you could actually use? Okay, so let's first appreciate just how groundbreaking this was. Before TBL came along, the corporate world lived by one simple, unshakable rule. Profit is king. Success was measured in dollars and cents. End of story. The TBL completely flipped that script. It said, hold on a second. A truly successful company has to be measured on 3 separate bottom lines, not one. It's not just about your bank account anymore. It's about holding companies truly accountable for how they treat people and the environment too. And boy, did the idea catch on. Just look at this. By the turn of the millennium, mentions of the triple bottom line among experts just exploded, leaving other sustainability ideas in the dust. The business world was clearly starving for a new way to think about value. So what exactly were these 3 bottom lines? You've probably heard of them as the 3 Ps: people, planet, and profit. Let's quickly break down what each of those really stands for. The breakdown is pretty straightforward, right? People is all about the social impact. How do you treat your employees, your customers, the community around you? Planet is your environmental report card. What kind of footprint are you leaving? And profit? Well, that's the one everyone already knew. The traditional economic bottom line. The whole goal was to put all 3 on equal footing. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn. For all its popularity, the TBL framework started to show some pretty deep cracks. In fact, even its creator, John Elkington, later called for a total rethink, realizing his big idea had some serious, fundamental flaws. The first and, honestly, the biggest problem was measurement. Profit? Easy. It's just dollars and cents. But how do you put a hard number on the well-being of a community or the health of a forest? Trying to compare social and environmental impacts to cold, hard cash was like comparing apples to abstract art. It was practically impossible to do in a way that was consistent or standardized. And because these things were so tough to measure side by side, another problem popped up: a total lack of integration. Instead of giving you one holistic picture of a company, you ended up with 3 separate silos. The finance team worried about profit, and way over in another building, completely separate teams were handling community stuff or environmental reports. This siloed thinking led straight to the third, and maybe the most damaging flaw. It completely missed how interconnected these things are. In the real world, a decision about a supply chain, that's profit, directly affects worker safety, that's people, and has a huge impact on carbon emissions, that's planet. It's all one big system. But the TBL's rigid 3-column spreadsheet just couldn't capture that complex reality. So what happens when you put it all together? It's hard to measure, nothing is integrated, and you ignore how everything is connected. Well, you get a system that's just begging to be misused. It created the perfect opening for companies to cherry-pick a few nice stories for their reports while quietly sweeping all the negative impacts under the rug. This is exactly what we now call greenwashing. It was like a giant smokescreen, making it impossible to tell who was actually walking the walk. But the story doesn't end there. The failures of the triple bottom line didn't kill the movement for corporate accountability. Not at all. In fact, they paved the way for the next stage of evolution: corporate social responsibility, or CSR, and environmental, social, and governance, what we all know as ESG. Okay, first up, CSR. The easiest way to think about this is as the internal philosophy. It's a company's own moral compass, its own framework for being a good corporate citizen. It's about values, self-policing, and committing to doing the right thing for society. ESG, on the other hand, is the external report card. Where CSR is about what a company believes, ESG is about what a company does, with hard, quantifiable criteria that investors and the public can use to measure its actual performance. It's way less about good intentions and all about the data-driven results. And this slide really nails the difference. CSR is qualitative. It answers the why. It's all about communicating values. ESG is quantitative. It answers, so what? It's about proving your impact with measurable data that investors can actually use to compare one company to another. It's the difference between saying you're a good person and showing the receipts. And that massive shift to quantitative data is what really tackles the biggest failure of the triple bottom line head-on. This new approach finally makes sustainability measurable, reportable, and, crucially, directly relevant to a company's financial performance. So you might be asking, how do you get everyone to measure things the same way? Great question. The answer is standardized reporting frameworks. You can think of these as the official rule books that create a common language for sustainability data so we can finally make real apples-to-apples comparisons between companies. One of the key players here is the Global Reporting Initiative, or GRI. Think of the GRI as the detailed instruction manual that the original triple bottom line concept was desperately missing. It provides this huge set of standards that thousands of companies now use to report their impacts on everything from human rights to water usage in a way that is finally consistent, credible, and comparable. So, for any company out there listening, what does this actually look like in practice? Well, it's a pretty clear 5-step journey. You start by picking a framework like GRI, then you do something called materiality mapping, which is a fancy way of saying you figure out which issues have the biggest real-world impact on your business and your stakeholders. After that, you dig in, gather the data, get your leadership on board, and then report your progress. It's the leap from just talking about your values to proving them with cold, hard data. And this brings us right back full circle to John Elkington. In his later years, he really zeroed in on corporate governance, the G in ESG. He understood that for sustainability to be more than just a buzzword, it had to be woven into the very fabric of how a company is run, right from the top. His vision grew right alongside the frameworks he helped inspire, which leaves us with one final massive question. The triple bottom line was this incredible idea that just stumbled on the execution. But now, with data-driven tools like ESG, we finally have the ability to measure what really matters. So, is this it? Is this the moment that true corporate accountability finally becomes a reality? Well, I guess only time will tell.